Hello. Have you ever heard of fan fiction? Well, there is a Stray Kids category, and you are in for a real treat. This story is called Now That I See You. And no, I did not write this. The smell of buttery popcorn and vanilla from the vents on Main St. tickled Felix's nose. A four-manic Pillar troupe dressed up in pastel pinstripe suits serenaded a crowd in a nearby corner. A colorful bouquet of Mickey-shaped balloons bounced above his head as the group walked towards their next destination. And Schumann giggled to themselves, dodging the strollers of upcoming traffic, their manager struggling to keep up with their excited pace. He couldn't help but smile and briefly close his eyes to absorb the warm California sun on his face. Felix felt someone nudge his arm to guide him towards a bend on their fork in the road, and he blinked up at the brightness and couldn't help but smirk. The fork in the road literally being Cinderella's castle itself. As they passed, his eyes couldn't help but gaze longingly at the cute couples that posed for a picture in front of the iconic fairy tale structure. Teens, adults, parents, the elderly. It was ridiculously cheesy as each couple gushed in a sweet smile, arms bound around each other, pressing a kiss on each other's cheeks or wrapping one another in a sweet bear hug. He smiled ruefully to himself. It was so cheesy. Couples in Disneyland, couples wearing matching outfits, couples taking ridiculous pictures in front of the castle. It was for hopeless romantics. It was cliché. It was. Felix glanced ahead of him, searching, his eyes naturally navigating to find the man dressed all in black, hands in his pockets, pale face obscured by his thick baseball cap as he walked ahead of the group with their VIP concierge. For a brief moment in time, Felix imagined strong arms wrapped around him, warm lips on his cheek, cheesy matching black outfits, a gushing smile for the camera in front of the castle. Cliché. It was so cliché. Smile, Felix. You're not supposed to look that serious in front of Small World. Jeez. Felix suppressed his eye roll and giving Hannah the finger as she laughed at his disgruntled face. Behave, you two minions. He felt the familiar body behind him before he heard the warm honey voice and smirked as their group shuffled to the onboarding area. Takes one to know one. Felix retaliated with a smile over his shoulder and was rewarded with Chan's smiling crescent moon eyes. Felix felt his neck warm, unsure if it was from the hot OC sun or finally being the object of his boyfriend's attention. Today was packed with plans, and Chan was too occupied planning and guiding the group to their fairy tale destination. His heart flipped as he subtly leaned his upper body backwards just enough to feel the pressure of Chan's solid chest beneath his shoulder blades. The moment he felt Chan make an oof noise under his mask, he immediately stood straighter and walked away to tag along behind the others. Chan's heavy gaze piercing holes into his back. Felix smiled smugly and proudly to himself. He scrolled through the pictures Hannah captured on his phone as they all began to get dispersed and line up in their two bows. His editing thoughts, however, were interrupted when he felt a hand gently push his waist to the last row of the second boat in line, the telltale Gucci bracelet he gave him glistening on the corner of his eye. Felix used all his willpower to bite back a smile, feigning interest on his phone before tucking it back in his pocket. He gleefully entered the boat, feeling Chan gently pressing the palm of his wide hand against the small of his back to guide him. For a brief moment in time, Felix had flashbacks of the large expanse of Chan's hands taking up most of his slim back, skin to skin, bare to each other, their bodies speaking for them, conveying words they could never express with their mouths, sharing sentiments with their lips and tongues, their love illuminating the room in groans and rapid breaths. Felix shook his head quickly to leave that headspace. Not now. In front of Small World, no less. Sorry, Walt. He felt Chan turn to him, his twinkling eyes smiling at him once more as their boat flowed towards the arches of puppet musical abyss. Felix slid down his seat, snuggling against Chan's side, the elder's warm arm firmly grasped it. Felix's knee under the bags on their laps, thigh to thigh, shoulder to shoulder. Felix was tempted to pull down both their masks and give everyone a show. In the row in front of them, Hannah and Chambin took selfies. The Chamix pair couldn't help but laugh at how different the duo was in their poses. Felix was honestly half paying attention as Chan's thumb grazed back and forth. This seemed to go unnoticed as Hannah turned her head to give them a ridiculous side eye. Behave back there, she mumbled, playfully nudging Chambin to scoot and give her more space. Chan guffawed at her comment, throwing his free hand up in exasperation. The cooler/sea from inside the Small World fortress blew in their faces and relieved them of the hot sun. From the row in front of Hannah and Chamberlain, Felix could hear I.N. groan in happiness at the coolness while Schumann began to tone-deaf sing the Small World melody to everyone's dismay. Felix sighed in contentment, grasping Chan's arm and cuddling his cheek to his shoulder now that they were away from the outside world. Chan shared the sentiment, sinking in his own seat to absorb Felix's body into his own, releasing his own contented sigh underneath his mask. Felix couldn't resist whipping out his phone to hold down on his lap, snapping a few pictures of them together to Chan's delight. Felix nuzzling himself under Chan's chin in different angles as colorful singing puppet children glistening in Christmas lights and the light behind them. It was little moments like this he always wanted to cherish, stalling glimpses of time when they could act and be just like a regular couple on a Disney vacation, enjoying It's a Small World on a sunny day, even just for a little while. A whirlwind of gorging on meaty oily corn dogs, creamy pineapple dough with soft serves, sour mint juleps, hot powdery Mickey-shaped bayonets, riding Pirates of the Caribbean, Rise of the Resistance, Thunder Mountain, and Indiana Jones. Felix gulped as he looked up at the towering building above them. His hands gently trembled even though he knew he shouldn't psych himself out. It was a Disney ride for crying out loud, a haunted one. He dragged his feet to the dark elevator room, their group huddling close together in almost pitch-black darkness. Schumann wrapped his arms around him, forcing Felix to peer up to the ceiling. "Did you know there's a body hanging above our heads, young bucky?" He taunted, making Felix squirm and whine. If he thought about it hard enough, he could feel the contents of his stomach flop around his belly, and would suffer a similar fate to their feeling sick Magni waiting outside for them with their manager. To his relief, Chamberlain intervened, wrapping his own strong arms around the two. "Leave him alone, puppy. Why is it so cold in here? Is it supposed to be this cold in here? Can someone turn on the lights?" Chamberlain whispered, undeniably starting to panic himself. Somewhere else in the huddled group he heard Chan scream and apologize in embarrassment, followed by Hannah's cackle and their VIP escort quietly chuckling to herself. Felix doesn't remember the trek to the Doom Brothers after that. His ears felt like they were plugged with cotton. His anxiety seemed to have skyrocketed and his heartbeat wouldn't stop pounding as he glanced at the morphing faces framed on the wall. He could feel goosebumps prickling his skin, and he tried to give a nice smile to the emotionless face of the worker standing on the side. Thunder crackled on the speakers, and he felt the anxiousness he felt during the SKZ Code Haunted House special of terror blooming in his veins, and the sudden uncomfortable feeling of awareness that they were completely underground. He weakly holds onto a pinch of fabric from Schumann's jacket, his fingers getting sweaty as they maneuver to the beginning of the ride. He wants to turn around and search for Chan in the midst of everything, but feels completely oversensitized and out of place. Felix could have only imagined how terrible he looked when the overgrown puppy turned around in concern at his silence and shifted his body. He could just recall seeing Schumann whispering to Hannah in her own concerned gaze as they began to shuffle their positions in line, rubbing his arm reassuringly. The next thing Felix knew, he was being guided to sit, wrapped in the cologne of his favorite person that permeated his senses even through his mask. Like a beacon of light in the dark cave of his mind, he blinked up to be met by his favorite crescent moons crinkling down at him, settling himself in the doomed buggy seat as they ascended through the mansion. The second they were submerged in darkness, Felix threw his arms across Chan's torso and squeezed, burying his face deep enough to feel Chan's curls under his cap tickle his eyelids, his solid muscles under his grip. He breathed in deeply of Chan's scent, the day's musk, cologne, a sprinkle of sweat, and just plain man. Felix ached to merge into his boyfriend as one person and feel his eternal warmth and comfort while his mind buzzed with relief. Chan returned the hug and squeezed him even tighter, his warm palm rubbing his back in comfort. Peace. Felix felt at peace. Even through the chorus and creepy hymn of the ride's song, it all felt drowned out as Felix focused on his breathing and the Chan's warmth around him. He was grateful for the pitch-black darkness blanketing them, the small bubble of love and protection melting his fears away. "I know, my baby. I know," Chan's gentle voice whispered in his ear. The pressure of his chin above Felix's crown was a welcoming weight. "I got you." Felix couldn't help but smile and let his body finally release his tension to relax and melt into him, his eyes following the animatronics and spooky daycare in tandem. Chan never released his tight grip, if anything gently swaying their bodies left and right, attempting to make his lover laugh as he sang in a comically deep voice. Grim grinning ghosts come out to so silently is he. Felix giggled at his ridiculousness, nudging him gently in the ribs at his silliness. There was never anything to be afraid of when he had Chan by his side. How he loved this man. The group cheered and clapped as Fantasmic reached its finale. The fireworks popped in rainbows of colors as Sorcerer Mickey bid everyone farewell. Felix leaned over the balcony from where they sat to absorb the moment, his heart aching that their magical day was finally coming to an end. He turned to the group while they took last-minute pictures, snapping moments to send to the group chat as Hyunjin was still exploring the last of his museums and Min Sun was still out and about shopping. Like clockwork, he looked for his favorite Aussie as everyone began to gather their belongings, his eyes searching for now a new blue hat donning the Club 33 logo. He frowned when he was nowhere to be seen, standing on his tippy toes to look over Chambing, Schulman, and I.N.'s head when someone tugged his arm. "There you are, Dopey." Over here, Hannah led him to around the corner of the balcony to see Chan leaning against a mural, his mask off ready for a photo op. Chan grinned and made grabby hands at him, Hannah pushing Felix towards him with an oath. Felix did a double take at the wall before him, his neck flushing with realization as Chan wrapped his arms around him and squished Felix's face in his hands, smiling to Hannah taking pictures on her phone. "Oh my God, Felix, at least pose," she lectured him, Chan's loud laugh echoing in their corner. Felix felt himself laugh in delight, admiring the painted mural of Cinderella's castle as their background. He hugged Chan back, allsy enough to quickly give Chan a peck on his cheek to have him squeal and shut his eyes as Hannah gagged and clicked through the barrage of photos. Felix's heart feeling so full and with love. Soon enough their romantic couple photo op was interrupted by Dweeky, Fox, and Puppy, pushing their way towards the camera frame hyper on Disney rides in full. They all laughed and jumped on each other's back, posed like they were in prom, attempted to spell out the word love with their gangly bodies, and every chaotic thing in between to end their night. Cheesy. But it was his favorite kind of cheesy. Felix closed his eyes in exhaustion, leaning against I.N.'s tall frame as their vans pulled up to the curb. He could still hear the gentle Disney music ringing in his ears as they left the parks. The Toy Story melody stuck in his head on repeat. There was a pleasant ache in his muscles, not from practice or schedule, but from miles of walking, taking in the new signs and sounds. The group waddled and separated into their respective vans, splitting them up in two, and as fate would have it, he wiggled his way to the totem that was the Club 33 hat and its owner, his silver hoops gleaming in the street lamp lights while Felix plopped himself in the backseat, sitting directly in the middle to be near him. They both wriggled their masks off and took a deep breath, the van setting off back to L.A. Both Hannah and Chambin covered their heads in their respective hoods, already ready to doze off. Felix felt Chan turn to him in all his dimpled glory and smiled cheekily at him, removing his hat and ruffling his curls, teeth gleaming in the darkness. "Hi, baby," he quietly regarded Felix, the random Taylor Swift song playing on the radio high enough for only Felix to hear him. Felix smiled and leaned over without thinking, pressing his lips quietly against the plush ones he dearly missed, only for a brief second, just enough to cool his desires, not enough to satisfy his wants and needs for more. He could see Chan's face warm to a shade of pink, shifting their bodies to face each other, pulling Felix's legs over his knees. It was an awkward position, but Felix could have cared less, as long as they were touching. Chan rummaged in the blue Disneyland bag under his legs excitedly, piquing Felix's curiosity that he hadn't seen him purchase anything earlier. Was that, he asked him drowsily, leaning his head back from their tangled limbs to settle into a comfortable position. "For you, baby," Prissy Chan gleefully whispered, pulling an array of things and placing them on Felix's lap. Felix couldn't help the gasp that came out of him, his eyes sparkling with wonder at his gifts. Chan held up a soft pastel-colored Pooh Bear plush, making it dance playfully on Felix's arm. "Winnie the Pooh, because you're my honey," Chan whispered. The plush fell like clouds under Felix's fingertips, and he felt his lip quiver at Chan's thoughtfulness before pulling out another item. "A Tinkerbell, because you're my pixie lixie," Chan said, holding a Tinkerbell Chibi neon green tumbler cup, shaking it in his hand as the glitter design shimmered in the freeway light reflection. Felix could now feel his tears prickle in his eyes, his throat choking up. "And lastly, a little reminder so you never forget." Chan held up a keychain of Mickey and Minnie side by side, an engraved "I love you" message to complete the piece. Felix's vision became blurry as he now began to cry, warm rivers of tears streaming down his cheeks as he shakily gathered the gifts on his lap. Chan pressed his warm lips against his temple. "Oh, Channy, I don't know what to say." He felt a sob rise to his chest. He always felt so incredibly loved and cared for by this man. He felt Chan breathe a chuckle over his ear, nuzzling his cold nose against Felix's warm throat. "I hope you had a good day, baby. I'm so happy we got to spend it together." Felix sniffled, careful to avoid any attention from his napping Benny and Hannah, his heart positively going to explode in his chest. He loved him, he loved him. "I love you," Channy, clutching his gifts to his chest, pressing against Chan as close as he possibly could. "I love you more, baby. Always, always, always." It was all so cliche, but Felix loved it. Now that the story is over, why don't you subscribe? Snoopdy Dawg out.